Okay, so we're up and running. I can't see you or hear you, but thanks for joining. I'm Dale Veron. I'm the CEO for Fortune Bay Corp, and a great pleasure to be presenting to you today on the company's Q2 2022 update for its company and projects. I will be making some forward-looking statements, so please refer to those on our website as well as on our corporate presentation. If any questions do come up during the presentation, just pop those into the chat box and we'll get those answered for you at the end of the webinar. So Q2 2022 was a busy and exciting time for the company, with lots of activities happening in the field and on our projects. Notably, the Goldfields PEA is now well underway. We also announced some initial drill results for the Strike project. That's the uranium project we've been busy working on. At our Murmac uranium project, we also announced drill targets, and drilling has now commenced at Murmac. We also, during the quarter, we also began trading on the OTCQX market in the US, and that's in line with our strategy to increase visibility, strengthen our shareholder base, and enhance liquidity. We're also really pleased to note that Saskatchewan remains Canada's top-ranked jurisdiction for mining, and that was according to the Fraser Institute's annual survey of mining companies, which was released in April 2022. So we'll dive right in, starting with our Goldfields project. And just to recap on the highlights for that project and why we consider it development ready, we are in a top-ranked jurisdiction, being Saskatchewan. The project has established infrastructure, notably the road down from Uranium City, a gravel road that makes the project accessible year-round. There's also a power line to site, which runs right up to the Box deposit. That branch of the power line is not active at the moment, but it's the same vintage as the power line that feeds Uranium City with power from the Charlotte River Hydropower Station. We base ourselves in Uranium City, where we have facilities, accommodation, a core processing facility, and we're close to the airport, which provides scheduled flights to major centers in Saskatchewan every few days. The project has got a permit for development, and that's according to an approved EIS, which was submitted in 2008 by the previous owner, and that's for an open pit mine and mill development with a capacity of 5,000 tonnes per day. In terms of our current mineral resources, we have around 1 million ounces in indicated resources and around 200,000 in inferred. The Box deposit is the larger and slightly higher grade of the two deposits, accounting for around 85% of the mineral resource. Just recapping on the 2011 PFS, I'm sure some of you have seen this before. It was done in 2011 and produced economics of 144 million Canadian NPV and a 19.6% IRR. That was done on a pre-tax basis and at a Canadian gold price of $1,250 an ounce. So in today's terms, we've seen that gold price move up considerably and offers some real upside for future studies on the project. And we're currently in a PEA, and what's being envisaged for the PEA is not something too radically different from the 2011 PFS in terms of the overall design of the project, which envisages an open pit mining scenarios for Box and a Fona deposit at a shared mill facility. However, there are numerous opportunities to improve upon this study, and we've gone about doing that in our ongoing PEA. The PEA is firstly involved in updated resource models. So we did complete some drilling in 2021 with some good results, and that's being put into a new resource model and being looked at as part of the PEA. The second phase, well, phase one of the PEA is of the mine to mill optimization, and that's really about developing the best business case for the project before we go into the details of the PEA itself. What we're looking at during phase one is different production cases, so looking at different throughputs, anything from 5 to 10,000 tonnes per day, and taking that through mine planning. And the mine planning really involves looking at that mineral resource model At a PEA level, one can include both indicated and inferred, and determine the best open pit mining scenarios for the deposits. Some of the key opportunities there include bringing some of the higher grades forward in production. With our new resource model, we have a much better idea of where the higher grades sit within the deposit, and we can target those earlier on in production, which will have a positive impact on economics. We also are looking to reduce the stripping and plan the mining accordingly. The process engineering side offers some unique opportunities based on some metallurgical test work that was done in 2015, which showed one can produce considerably higher gold recoveries than what was used in the 2011 PFS. And that's being developed into that's shown by a designed new flow sheet, a simplified flow sheet, which envisages a whole rock ore leach followed by carbon and pulp. On the infrastructure side, we've been looking at the 2011 PFS in more detail and reviewing that and looking for opportunities to improve upon the design in terms of the, really modernizing and using best practice waste rock and tailings management, and improving some of the infrastructure around the site. Part of that is also looking at developing a camp in Uranium City itself to inject capital into that community and provide opportunities for the local members. Finally, we'll take that through to a financial modeling stage where we'll be looking at OPEX and CAPEX estimations and producing NPV and IRR to look at what's really the best economic case for the project. Before going to selecting necessarily the best economic case, we'll also consider permitting and social considerations. Obviously, we have that existing development permit in hand, and it's important to consider that as we move forward and making sure we can still streamline the permitting process for the project. And then on the social side, we don't envisage any detailed consultation with communities at this stage, but talking to the representative groups and making sure that we have open and transparent communication with them at an early stage in the project, which is really important. And finally, once we've decided on the phase one best business case, that will go through into a more detailed the PEA. At this stage, we're nearing the completion of our phase one, and we'll soon be moving ahead into phase two. In terms of our roadmap, many of you have seen this before, but really a short mention that we're on track with all our planned activities, with that PEA expected to be completed in early Q4. So moving on from Goldfields to our Strike and Murmac uranium projects, and just reminding everyone, we situated on the northern rim of the Athabasca Basin, the world's premier district for high-grade uranium. What we're targeting is basement-hosted deposits related to the Athabasca Basin. There's numerous of these examples around, some that have been mined like Eagle Point, and some that are in development like Arrow and Triple R. So we're really targeting deposits in a very similar setting to these, going directly into these competent basement rocks. We're not exploring beneath the sandstone cover. Deposits that sit at that contact between the sandstone and the basement are challenging to mine, and that's because the sandstone itself is water saturated, and it requires more complicated and costly mining methods to extract. So targeting directly in those basement rocks, they're highly favorable targets because they do allow for conventional mining methods. We just zoom into that area, we see the edge of the Athabasca Basin and the two projects, Murmac and Strike. Now, historically, this area has had numerous exploration campaigns and mining at Gunnar, Lorado, Beaver Lodge. Those are different styles of deposits to what we're targeting. Those are these Beaver Lodge type deposits that are more associated with granitic rocks. And historical exploration efforts were very much targeted at looking for those types of deposits, and the methods used there was really looking at doing surface prospecting, and then following any results up with trenching and drilling. What's never been systematically done or in any detail in this area is targeting the graphitic rocks, the EM conductors, and those are shown in red. And we have a considerable strike length of those targets And those represent these graphitic rocks that are favorable for these Athabasca Basin hosted deposits. So it's really a model that hasn't been applied in this area and represents a unique opportunity for the company to be chasing these high-grade deposits in the basement that have not been looked for before, despite this incredible endowment of uranium in the area. So at our Strike project, we're just looking here at the northern portion of the Strike project, where we've identified 3 principal conductors, the J, K, and L conductors. And this year we went about developing targets along those conductors and commenced and just completed drilling, 9 holes completed for about 2,000 meters. And we can see those holes there, holes 5 to 13. And what we were looking to target here was, obviously we want to be targeting along the EM conductors themselves. These are these graphitic rocks, which are the favorable hosts for these Athabasca Basin deposits. But to develop targets along those EM conductors, we completed a gravity survey, which is shown on the right. And that what we're targeting in the gravity are the gravity lows, which are represented as the blues. And those can represent these clay alteration envelopes that sit around the uranium mineralization. Now, those lows can also represent overburden thickness, but nonetheless, a very important data layer to help get some initial focus on the project. What we also considered in our targeting was structure. One can make structural interpretations from some of the satellite imagery, and we did look for some cross-faulting, as well as considering the historical data that had been collected by Cameco in the mid-2000s. They did a lot of prospecting in the area, found elevated radioactivity, good uranium values, good geochemical pathfinder, as well as the right types of clays. Now, the key thing to note here is that in these valleys, where the graphitic rocks are soft, and they've therefore formed these valleys. And in the valleys, you don't actually see the target horizon, which are these graphitic rocks. So they're essentially blind, but we were seeing all the right signatures around these or on these valley edges to warrant drilling at these gravity targets along the EM conductors. So just in terms of the drill results, we're really pleased with these drill results. It was just the things we're looking for and hoping to see. And just to summarize that, with all the 9 holes completed, we did intersect graphite. So that's the first important start. We're seeing the right rock types in the area. Within the graphite itself, we also saw faults, which is really important, and just shows that the targeting, the way we're going about drilling these conductors, it's working, and we are drilling into the right horizon to evaluate for uranium mineralization. In addition to that, what we saw was variable amounts of bleaching and alteration. And what that really means is that along these faults in the graphite, you're seeing the evidence for the movement of fluids that have altered the rock and bleached it. Now, this does vary from hole to hole, but in all holes drilled, we did see that. And what was really a very pleasing result for us was that we saw elevated radioactivity in 4 of the 9 holes. And that really demonstrates there is potentially mineralized fluids running along these faults with the ability to deposit uranium. And from the results we got, we drilled 2 holes at the Tenor prospect. So that's an area where 1,000 tons was mined historically in the 1950s at grades of 0.6 to 3.5% uranium. We drilled 2 holes along that mineralized structure. We wanted to understand it better. We didn't have the historical core. We wanted to evaluate that further and understand that structure and the orientation of it in further detail. And those 2 holes did intersect elevated radioactivity within these graphitic faults. Hole number 5 intersected 1,300 counts, which is on the west. A historical hole, there were just 3 historic hole drills drilled deeper down in that structure, and that also intersected 1.6% equivalent uranium over around 4 feet. So it does indicate that system could be strengthening to the west, and we'll be looking at our data in more detail once we get the assays back and the geochemistry, as well as the structural interpretation of the oriented drill core to determine if any follow-up is warranted. Outside of that, we did see along the K Conductor some really interesting results, which we're really excited about. At drill hole 13, 1800 counts per second at about 145 meters along the drill trace. What's important here is all our drilling as well is at fairly shallow depth. So these intersections are around 35 to 95 meters vertically below surface. So I'm going to just zoom into that K Conductor just to highlight why we believe this area is exciting. If we look at hole 13, and we're showing the core up on the top right here. What we do see there is firstly this graphitic units, which are the darker black units, and shown there, written on the core box, is where the 1800 counts came from, indicating there's indications for uranium along that graphitic structure. It's a strong looking structure. And importantly, apart from the mineralization intersected in the rocks above and below, we see this whiteness to the rocks, and that indicates there's clays and there's alteration in these rocks. And that's that evidence that fluids have moved through these structures. Also, we see this redness in the rock at the bottom, which is hematite, and that indicates we're near redox front, which means the important change in chemical conditions for the precipitation of uranium. So we're really pleased with this result. And, we've got two experienced Cameco geologists on site. They've had 10 years with Cameco and drilled, tens of holes across the basin and looked around some of these bigger deposits. And this is certainly the type of things that suggest that as you move away from this, you could quite quickly get into some mineralization. So this area definitely warrants follow-up, and it's a very good result for considering it's our first pass of drilling along these conductors. Also at hole number 10, while collaring that hole, we actually noticed some uranium in a mineralized structure, or it was assayed, a radiometric assay, but there was elevated counts of 5,000. There's not a lot of graphite in this rock, so we went and drilled the hole at the conductor, which sits below it's covered with tills, and we did intersect some really good graphitic structure in these rocks, as well as alteration, bleaching, and some hematite alteration. So again, along that trend, we're seeing all the right ingredients, that the right geological processes have been in play along this trend. So if we look at that trend in more detail, the red trace here is the conductor trace. That's the main axis for where the graphite is. As you can see by the satellite image, it's covered. We've walked along that on surface. You really don't see anything. It's just along the edges of the valley where you start to get some outcrop. And there we are seeing the right signs that this is a prospective area. The gravity lows along that trace are shown here in blue, and we've really only tested at the southern portion of one of those. And there's a lot of strike length remaining on this trend. So we've got about 3 kilometers of strike along this portion of the K Conductor, and follow-up's definitely warranted. In terms of planning that follow-up, our plan is to get back our assay results, the geochemistry from our drilling, as well as the clay data, and really make a determination where we believe the best areas to follow up will be. And that will be done in conjunction with some further surface work. And we're looking forward to planning some follow-up in an area where we believe it has the right potential to host one of these Athabasca Basin basement-hosted deposits. Moving across to the Murmac project, again, a very interesting area in that quite a bit of historical work had been done, particularly in the northern portion of the area where work tended to be focused. And shown here is the drill holes in white on that left image, and about 150 drill holes completed in this area. And they were really focused again on the results from surface prospecting, in other words, areas where there's outcrop, that was followed up by trenching and then the drilling. This area never saw any concerted effort to test these EM conductors, which are shown in red. And again, you can see those running through these valleys where they're covered with either shallow lakes or tills. And that really, that meant they weren't amenable to surface prospecting. Some of the surface prospecting that had been done did pick up numerous counts of elevated radioactivity as well as decent uranium assays. And I've just highlighted in here with these yellow dots all the historical outcrop and boulders that had greater than 5,000 counts per second. So there's definitely an endowment of uranium along this trend, but no effort to go after these EM conductors. So we completed VTEM surveying in the winter or late winter to get a modern data set that we could target these EM conductors or these graphitic rocks. And we also recently completed the gravity coverage over the area, which is shown on the image on the right. And again, we're using the same targeting criteria as we are at Strike, targeting EM conductors, gravity lows, and then also considering the structure in the area. We do see two, or I should say three, really significant cross faults in the area, and that's favorable settings where they intersect the conductors because they create more space for fluids. So those are really good areas to be targeting around, and there are numerous smaller cross-cutting faults in the area as well. And then obviously including all the historical data and drilling quite a few holes around the historical results. The plan really has a first pass, a test of these conductors to better understand the geology, where there's alteration, and hopefully some mineralization too, which will give us some focus for further drilling efforts. So a total of 24 initial drill targets have been defined, and we're planning to test 8 to 10 of those in prioritized targets. And the drilling has commenced, and we're really looking forward to reporting results from this project. So as we wrap up, just our capital structure and ownership, still really tightly held, around 43 million shares outstanding, with board and management owning around 15%. Our cash on hand is at the moment around 3.6 million. So despite the markets, we're in a good position with our cash, sufficient to fund us, through to the end of the year, and even perhaps into early next year, depending on how we allocate that. But certainly enough in the treasury to complete all our drilling and our assaying, as well as complete the Goldfields PEA and announce those results in early Q4. So just in summary, we're in a top-ranked jurisdiction. We've got high potential projects. The Advanced Goldfields Gold Project, where PEA is underway, really underpinning value for the company. Some tremendous upside on our uranium projects at Strike and Murmac, with that potential for these high-grade Athabasca Basin deposits. And our Mexican asset, which I didn't talk about today, but around 1.7 million ounces of gold across the categories on the one deposit on the property, and then numerous other exploration targets on the Ixhuatán project. Experienced board and management. We've got a great experienced team in the field working on the projects and looking at the rocks. And we really believe we're poised for growth with an attractive valuation and multiple potential catalysts through the work we're doing focused in Saskatchewan. So thanks very much for attending. I appreciate your time. We will make a video of this recording, a recording of this live on our website. We do plan to give another update in mid-October, and between now and then we're looking forward to some more drilling results from our uranium projects. And by mid-October, we think we'll be in a position to announce the results for our PEA. If you have any questions outside of this webinar, we can always reach us through our website, and I'll just go and check if there's any questions that have come in from the Q&A. So what type of grades and mineralized core widths would you consider a good result, considering the type of deposit you're expecting? This question is directed to one or both of the uranium targets you're currently drilling. So in terms of widths and grades, certainly high grade in the Athabasca Basin is considered over 1%, and in terms of widths, you would be looking at certainly a meter or two, depending on how you're drilling it. That would be an initial good start to finding sort of 1%, greater than 1% over greater than 1 meter. And then sort of stepping out from that, these deposits certainly, often have different lenses. So you can get multiple intersections of that nature that are sort of stacked within the drill hole. So, in terms of our results, we've certainly got some decent counts. We're not expecting high grades or grades over than 1% at this point, but we do think we are seeing the right favorable characteristics that we could be close to some high-grade mineralization. I hope that answers the question. It's a little bit of a tricky one and does depend on the types of deposit, but yeah, typically over 1% grade and over a meter, hopefully more than that, would be certainly exciting at an early stage on an initial sort of discovery. And I think that is the only question. So if there are any more that anyone thinks of, feel free to get in touch with me. And otherwise, yeah, thanks for your time and look forward to keeping you updated. Bye for now.